Hi, I'm Sportmentary, and welcome back to another Face-Off. This will be our second podcast, and before we get going, I want to thank everybody for their feedback. It blew the commission eye away on how many people came to listen to the podcast and your feedback, and we want to thank you. And hopefully we can continue to do a better job and get more feedback and take this to another level. Before we get started, I'd like to thank my partner in crime, The Comish.
You're welcome, Sportmentary. I just want to say that guy who thought you were having a stroke was right. and it's good that you're out of the hospital. And
the recovery is going pretty good.
All right, let's get started.
Okay, today's topic will be the Vancouver Canucks should start Schneider versus Luongo. And I'm going to take that position. They should start Schneider. And boy, I don't even know where to start. There's so many reasons in my mind why they shouldn't start the Luongo shot. Okay? Because he is one. He is a long shot.
I remember when he won the gold medal for Team Canada, you were crying.
I was crying because they won. I almost crying because they had him in net. And I shuddered every time he touched the puck.
A 2-1 game where he basically saved the day for them. But okay, go ahead. Let's hear why Schneider, that American who couldn't lead the Moose, my Manitoba Moose, to the promised land, should be in net.
Well, first I'll say that a Canadian team has won the Stanley Cup, is it 92, 93, something like that? But anyway, so first off, Luongo was pulled in his last game. He sucked. They had to bring in Schneider to mop him up. This is getting to the playoff run here. This is a team that's fighting for the President's Cup, and they have to pull this number one goaltender. What does he have? A 12-year contract for about $150 billion?
So you're telling me that like Martin Brodeur has never been pulled before, or any number one goalie has never been pulled before. So he had a bad game.
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, you knew Patrick Roy. You knew Brodeur, like you said. You knew Ken Dryden. I don't want to name every goaltender. Anyway, I don't want to name every goaltender, but when it came down to playoff time, when it came down to the crunch time, you could count on those guys. But let's get back to the topic. Why Luongo shouldn't start? Why Schneider should?
Oh, you mean Roberto Luongo, who's 41, 19, and 4 in March over the last few years, shouldn't start? I don't know.
He's 30 and 14th, and he ranks 20th among active goaltenders who played in games this year. Obviously, the Vancouver Canucks feel that they need to play Schneider almost an equal amount of time just to have a chance. So, that doesn't bode well. Here again is a few more statistics. The number one goalie for Vancouver, and the guy that's played like a number one goalie in the NHL, his save percentage is 15th in the league, 21st in goal against average. He's only played in 54 games. Luongo in the playoffs. You want to take back last year, you want to take back previous years.
You can't take back last year where he overcame two hurdles. One, he beat the Chicago Blackhawks. And two, he got his team to the Stanley Cup. So what are you taking back?
Okay, what I said is that he's not a winner. He's not a winner. Look what he did in the Game 7 before the riots in Vancouver. His mind gets the best of him. He's a great regular season goaltender. He reminds me of LeBron James. Great in the regular season, get to the fourth quarter, pull the guy because his head is mush.
So you're saying you should close the book before you finish reading it. So we should have closed the book on Peyton Manning, John Elway, Ray Bourque, Steve Yzerman. Should I go on?
You're gonna compare future Hall of Famers, Hall of Famer to this guy. He'll never make the Hall of Fame. He's never gonna win a Stanley Cup. I'll tell you that. His head is mush. You look at last year in games that mattered. Vancouver should have easily won the game in the series in probably 5 or 6 games. But for Luongo. The reason Boston won, Mr. Thomas, isn't he American? Sure, he's American. I want to say this. Luongo never is in the game in the Stanley Cup playoffs, especially in the finals. Last year, he was a joke. That's why the city of Vancouver is even questioning if he should even start.
Well, they should question why they still have the Sedins playing too then, because those guys are just as soft as Luongo.
Well, we're not talking about soccer and diving, are we? You just made another point of mine, Kamish, and that is they're going to need a solid goaltender to win the cup. They can't rely on a bunch of divers and underachievers because the Sedins in their own right are
What has Cory Schneider done in the playoffs to make you think he should start over a veteran? Why not give Luongo the start? It's the 7-game series. If he's not doing well, they can pull him.
When Schneider came in for relief in games last year, he was stellar. And I say this.
Exactly. When he came in for relief, he didn't have the pressure of knowing he was going to start.
He's had the pressure in over 30 games. He's 20.
When you fall off the Cory Schneider bandwagon with the rest of those knuckleheads who want Luongo to ride the pine, I'm not going to be there to help you with your broken ankles.
Okay, all I'm going to say is Schneider 20-7. He's second in the league in save percentage, third in goals against average. He's been in a tear as of late. This guy,
as Yogi Berra once said,
playoff hockey on his mind, and he's coming to play where the starter isn't. You know, this guy has played awesome this year. He deserves a chance.
He's yet to prove himself in the playoffs.
And I tell you, as a Canadian,
yes,
who will stand behind a Canadian team to win at all costs. Now, Vancouver might not be my first shot at. They're not the front runner. They're a dark horse. But if they're in it, I'm going to go for the Canadian team to win. I don't want to see more riots this year. I don't want to see another
They'll riot in Vancouver whether they win or lose. It's not.
Canada is looking for a team, a legit team to bring a Stanley Cup back to the nation. And Vancouver with Luongo is not that guy. I do agree the Sedins probably aren't either. Their goon tactics aren't either. They really need to play hockey, not a bunch of boxing on ice, not trying to injure people and kill them for life. But that being said, that's what they have. They have the Sedins. They have goons. They need a quality goaltender to bring it home. And
how can you say Luongo's not a quality goaltender?
Well, when's Vancouver going to cut their losses with Luongo and say he's not the guy who's going to win?
I'm not saying they should. I'm not saying they should play him if he's not playing well, but I'm saying he deserves the start. He's a gold medal winner. He's been to the Stanley Cup. What playoffs experience does Cory Schneider have aside from mopping up after?
I'll tell you this.
Might have crapped the bed once or twice, but it doesn't matter. At this point, you're wrong. I'm right. Luongo starts the first game, maybe the second game.
First of all, you know, I hate the fact that he won the gold medal. I love Canada won the gold medal. I think, you know, you had Brodeur who was just coming. You know, you have those goaltenders. They play for years. They're stellar. Then they go through a year or two where they're bad. Now he's hot again. He wasn't hot at that time. He was, you know, trying to push over the hurdle. Should he retire? Shouldn't he retire? He played 2 years or 3 years of crap hockey, and then he came back and played great. That was what we were left off. Those were the two best goalies in Canada. And Luongo? Seriously, I mean, come on, Comish, be honest with me. Every time a puck was shot at Luongo, you didn't think that thing was going to go in. Wobbly pucks went in on him in early rounds. Give me a break.
I'm not saying I wasn't nervous with him between the pipes, but what I'm saying is he overcame his nervousness, however he did it. He won the gold medal. It's a team sport. This year, the Canucks have made some changes. They seem to have more toughness. Who did they get? That Zach Kassian guy? Traded Cody Hodgson, got Zach Kassian. Maybe they're onto something this year. Maybe they'll be playing different in front of Luongo. And maybe the fact he's having a bit of a dry spell right now will get him focused on the playoffs.
I'll tell you what. And I bashed the Canucks a little bit tonight with the Sedins, the Divers. I'm not going to take that back. What I am going to say is, regardless of the goon tactics of the Vancouver Canucks, they should have won last year. They played well enough, okay? But with Luongo, especially in the finals, okay, it happened 4 times in the Stanley Cup finals where Luongo just they had to pull him, and it just got too much in Game 7. You see Mr. Kessler going around the ice, and you can see him crying halfway through the game. What's going on here? He's letting it go, but he couldn't say it publicly. But you know that's what he was thinking. You know the fans, as much as they initially came out and said Luongo's our man, you're seeing a different tune out of Vancouver. You know,
okay,
and I feel sorry for those guys in Vancouver.
You've made your point. We have about a minute to go before you turn.
I'm in the hospital again after you make me go there again?
That's right. I just think the fact is you have to go with your veteran. You can't rely on Schneider to crap the bed because he he pulls a Luongo in your mind when he plays his first game, when he starts the playoffs for them. He can't start the playoffs for them. He must watch. And if he has to come in and play cleanup, then so be it. But at this point, you got to go with your veteran. I'll give you the last word because I know where you're going after this, so you have 20 seconds.
Okay, before the ambulance arrives, I'll just say this. I think sometimes a guy deserves a shot. He's not a rookie anymore. He deserves a shot.
How does he deserve a shot? It's the play.
You're giving me the last word. I gave you the last word. He deserves the last shot based on his play in the latter part of the season. Most of the season, the latter part. He is playing the type of hockey that teams look for when they go into the Stanley Cup playoffs. They want to ride a wave, and he's providing that. And Luongo's going, once again, the opposite way. That is why I say he deserves a shot. And they have nothing to lose. And I'm going to finish with this. As I was trying to say, my heart goes out to the people of Vancouver. They've been to 3 Stanley Cups and had their heart broken. 2 7-game.
Why would your heart go out to them?
7-game finals. Because it's a Canadian team, and I'm about to cry, but I love my Canadian teams. And they're not my number one. They're right at the bottom. But when it comes to Canada, I go for Canada. And I say, let's go, Canada. Let's do it.
They have more
shot this year. They're not going to do it Luongo, and it breaks my heart. And Canada will have to wait another year to bring what's out.
That's okay. We got the Ottawa Senators that are going to do it for us anyway.
Well, yeah, they've done it every year. This is our legitimate shot at it. And I poke fun at the Canucks. But go, Canucks, go, baby. And anyway, that's how
vote for the right.
Commish, we're not going to agree.
Well, that's true. But don't forget to vote for me.
Love Luongo.
I'm right, you're wrong. Good night.
But I love Luongo, you hate Luongo. But before we go, I just want to say that join us next Friday. I believe it's the 12th next Friday. Or is it the 12th next Friday, for another podcast. We hope that you will vote. And
it's actually the 13th.
The 13th. Okay.
Friday the 13th.
That shows where my head is today.
We'll be talking about your superstitions on Friday the 13th.
Well, my superstitions. I'll say that, please visit www.sportmentary.com and look for our face-off page. It's right at the top. There's a tab at the top. And vote for this week's winner, me or the commish. That's Sportmentary or the commish. Please vote and provide your comments in the voting poll, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Hey, Commish, thanks for joining me from the peg tonight.
You're welcome, and to all our fans out there, exercise your democratic right to vote for the right guy, which is me.
One thing I'll say, are you guys still wearing Parkers out there?
Yeah, it's supposed to snow on Sunday, so I haven't put mine away yet.
I was just kind of being tongue-in-cheek, but you never know in the peg, you never know.
And a happy Easter and a happy Passover to all our friends.
Yes, a happy Easter, Good Friday, good Passover, good Pesach to everybody. Good Yontif, guys.
And go Tiger, go.
Go Tiger, go. I agree. That's another topic. All right, we'll see you next week.